Good evening, everybody. My name is Myrtle Clark, Managing Director of Fields of Green for All and the remaining half of the Dach couple. Welcome to my very precious Fields of Green for All team. Our amazing, amazing affiliate companies, members of the media, our legals, and friends. Also, a really big welcome to everybody who's joining us online around South Africa, in Africa, and all over the world. Please pop us a message if you're watching online in the comments so that we know that you're there. Today, on our International Day of Cannabis, 4/20, the 20th of April, millions of us around the world are celebrating our relationship with our beloved plant. My message to everyone is thank you for being such an awesome worldwide community, and never give up. We are not free until we are all free. This evening, we are adding to our celebrations what could possibly be the first book about cannabis in South Africa in the 21st century. We are beyond proud of our efforts to bring you this guiding document about cannabis policy. I am proud to be joined by members of our team as we highlight the importance of covering every aspect of cannabis legalization without, of course, reading the whole book tonight. Fields of Green for All seems to be becoming the voice of reason in this crazy world of cannabis in South Africa. However, this is through the inspiration and education we have gathered from our legal team, our expert witnesses for the trial of the plant, fellow civil society activists, and millions of cannabis enthusiasts who have crossed our paths over the last 11 years. Chief voice of reason must be Paul Michael Keichel, the head of our legal team at Schindler's Attorneys. Our special friend sends us a message from the KZN Midlands where he has semigrated. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Michael Keichel.
Hi all, Paul Michael here, coming to you from the Natal Midlands. I'm very sorry that my distance means that I can't attend this prestigious event, but Myrtle did ask me to put together a very brief video so that I could be in the room in spirit, if not at least in person. I've walked a long journey with Myrtle, and before that with Jules and Myrtle. We all think very fondly of his memory, even though we'll all remember him as the undoubtedly grumpier half of the Dach couple. The official launch of the final manifesto is an incredible day for South Africa, and especially for the cannabis community, but really for anybody who feels empathy for their fellow human beings, and for that matter, their fellow South Africans. The one reason that I up front agreed to work this path with Jules and Myrtle was always because I understood that their hearts were in the right places. They weren't doing this for material gain. They were doing this because they knew that it was right. They wanted to uplift the lives and the livelihoods of their fellow South Africans, and they wanted their fellow citizens to stop being arrested, prosecuted, and put into jail for what all of us know are very low harm and very silly crimes in the first place. So Myrtle and everybody else present, I wish you all the best for the launch of the manifesto, and I really hope that it gets government's ear. You guys all rock, and let's continue this journey together and hopefully reach a destination where we can relax and light up and smoke without any of the paranoia that goes along with it being illegal. So, a luta continua, and keep well, everyone.
Without further ado, let's have a look at the book. Where do we start? We start with Cannabis 101. This is a chapter we added for the final of our manifesto because some of our lawmakers still think that we smoke the leaves. It is a crash course on the plant and its uses. And there is really no better person to tell us about growing cannabis than Dan the Grow Man. A stalwart of our Hotbox show, there's hardly a question about the cultivation of cannabis that Daniel Purkis finds difficult to answer. I posed this question to Dan: why are you passionate about growing weed? And how easy is it to grow our favorite plant? Dan the Grow Man.
Good evening. So, let's just start here. Why am I passionate? I grew about, sorry, one second. I grew up around cannabis and it sparked my interest around the use of the plant recreationally. I started with a few plants outdoors in my early teens and I wanted to know everything there was to know about the plant. Research became my hobby. I wanted to become part of the cannabis culture and it became my passion. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I desired to have a career involving cannabis. My experience and network gained momentum when I became involved in setting up a hydroponic retail store. Designing and building grow facilities was the next step forward naturally. How easy is it? You need to be passionate about growing cannabis to make a success of it. I do believe it can be quite overwhelming at first, but with some research and gaining practical experience, managing a small setup should be fun. Every grow comes with its own challenges, but this is how we learn and gain experience. It's all part of the process I call school fees. I do not believe it is easy to grow good quality cannabis consistently for first-time growers. There are so many factors involved when setting up your own grow, and these are designed around the life cycle of the plant. Some would say that the secret to growing any plant is to focus on medium, light, and nutrient, and to make sure you have a good quality seeds. I absolutely agree, but there's more to it. I also think you need to ask yourself, what quality of weed would I like to grow? For outdoor growing, you want to make sure to sow seeds in spring to ensure optimal growth. Outdoor plants will always be subject to the elements, but if planted at the correct time of the year, there is far less factors that need to be controlled by you. Indoor growing is a lot more complex. As you try to recreate an optimal environment for your plants, this environment will need to be managed systematically. This tends to be more time-consuming, and I do not think people realize how much time needs to be spent nurturing and caring for your plants to ensure maximum yield, pest-free quality buds. The important thing is that you have some basic understanding and you do your research. There is so much free information at your disposal, as well as technology and intriguing strains. One gains new tips and tricks from one harvest to the next. I started with a few outdoor plants in my early teens, and I've not stopped learning since. My advice would be to become part of the community where we continue to learn from each other. Thank you.
So how do we educate people about cannabis? From our lawmakers sitting with the power to budding entrepreneurs who want to up their game from growing at home. Linda Siboto is co-founder with Trenton Birch of Chiba Africa Academy, Africa's first cannabis education institution, and is here to answer this question for us. Is there any hope of educating the lawmakers? And do you think we will ever bring popular education, cannabis education, to the masses? Linda from Chiba Academy.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Cool, thank you for that. So I'm Linda Siboto from Chiba Africa, Africa's first cannabis academy. Yay. Thank you so much for Fields of Green for the support that you have been giving us right throughout this journey. I don't think we would have been at this point in this juncture if it wasn't for your support. What we really have learned is that, cannabis is a collaborative energy plant, and it has, helped us get to this point where we are. And the way that we've sort of integrated the system of formal and informal and creating sort of this campus that we have now in Vereniging has really opened up our eyes as to the need that is out there, and for the people who want to actually experience cannabis and how they can utilize it within their lives as a modality to help in the health sector, also as a point of therapy for people. But the other thing that we mustn't also forget is that as much as that it's important for everybody to understand what cannabis is, it can't be just for the elite. We also need to remember the people that have helped support this industry and to make what it is today. I speak to the people out in the Eastern Cape, of course. It seems like they've been left out in the conversation, and we need to actually quickly and aggressively go out and actually get them involved in what we're doing here. So as Chiba Cannabis Academy, we are aiming to do a lot of projects out there in the Eastern Cape. We are engaging many stakeholders and hoping to actually realize something that is beneficial for the people. And hopefully you'll see that happening as the time goes by. And to answer the question is quite complex, because it requires many stakeholders to be involved. Obviously, government being one of them, and formal institutions such as your UCTs, your VALs, and so on, in order to realize and normalize this as an actual study. And who knows, what we can, the result will be after this. So I hand it back over to you also to help us answer this question. It's not just something that we can answer ourselves, because we don't know the answers on our own. And and also I just like to thank everybody that's here, and also for this opportunity to speak. And I hope to see you guys more often at our campus, because we're having another open day on the 8th of May. Yeah. And have a awesome 420. Everybody, thank you very much.
Okay. Fine. Thanks. So we start at the beginning with Cannabis 101, but one has to always put our one foot forward in front of the other by going backwards. And we have to look at the background of cannabis in South Africa, the history of this 700-year-old road, and that will help us to put it all in context. My darling Julian was incredibly passionate about the history of cannabis and the history of cannabis prohibition, and he wrote the history section of our manifesto. Jules said on many, many occasions, "I am doing this because it is payback time for the evils of my ancestors, the colonial fuckwits." His favorite quote was from the report of the Indian Immigrants Commission, Natal, in 1885. And then he used to put on this pompous accent and do this quote: "The smoking of hemp renders Indian immigrants unfit and unable to perform with satisfaction to their employer that work for which he was specially brought to this colony." Well, say no more. My message to our lawmakers is this: ignore our history at your peril, because the prohibition of dacha is the last apartheid law. To put our work into context, Julian and I traveled all over the world telling our story and learning from others. Along the road, we met many remarkable drug policy warriors, including, of course, the guys from Macedonia, who lent us their slogan for all the t-shirts we're wearing tonight: good people disobey bad laws. And in our travels around the world, we've met so many good people disobeying these bad laws. Amongst all these warriors, Kenzie, Amy, and Michael became close because of their passion for the sustainability of cannabis law reform. Drug policy activists in member states have just finished a week of meetings online for the 64th Commission on Narcotic Drugs, transmitted from the UN in Vienna. I was really sad not to meet up with our friends again this year, but we'll be reporting on this year's events from Vienna very soon. Kenzie Ribole-Zimoli co-authored the manifesto with me and others, but the accuracy and academic rigor of some of the more difficult parts are definitely for his credit. Thank you, Kenzie, and South Africa says thank you to you too. Kenzie sent us a few words from Barcelona.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and hello everybody. I'm Kenzie from Barcelona, and Amy just made a great intervention, a wrap up, or how we got together. I was not in this particular meeting in New York, but I met the Daga couple just after in Amsterdam at that moment in Cannabis Liberation Day, a great event organized in Amsterdam by our Dutch friends from VOC. And I got connected, in addition to seeing these great people coming to the United Nations with great advocacy. Jules had a particular interest for history, and the history of South Africa and prohibition and cannabis is very dense and deep and important, both in South Africa but also internationally. South Africa has always been playing a crazily prohibitionist role in the international scene, within the international community. And with Egypt, South Africa and Egypt have been the two countries really that caused the prohibition of cannabis, much more than the USA actually. And so South Africa, I had already South Africa in my mind as a historical sort of important piece in the prohibition. But then I met Myrtle, and she explained me the reality of South Africa, not in the 1 century ago that I knew of because of history, but the reality of South Africa today, the social, economic, the reality of cannabis communities in South Africa, the diversity of cannabis communities, cannabis plant and cannabis people. Yeah, it's a fascinating history, fascinating diversity and richness, wealth that could be generated for everybody out of this plant. And maybe it's time, a century after South Africa caused with Egypt global prohibition, it's time for South Africa to become the leader in well, socially and environmentally sound cannabis regulations. So have a great event today, and enjoy reading the manifesto, which is a great piece.
Amy King is the best drug policy sleuth ever. During the process of writing this manifesto, she provided invaluable input around the nitty-gritty and getting our thousands of facts and footnotes accurate and in order. Thank you, Amy. We are watching Mexico's every move. Ladies and gentlemen, Amy King.
Hi, good morning from Mexico. I guess I wanted to start by saying how I met Myrtle and Jules. It was actually on 4/20 in 2016 at the United Nations Special Assembly for Drug Reform, and I had literally on April 20th just been thrown out of the United Nations for wearing a shirt that said marijuana is safer than alcohol. And so while outside at the outdoor protest, there was a mobile jail cell, and so all of the activists and people from around the world who had gathered for this special event were there. And Jules spotted me and said, "Hey, nice hair." And I had colored purples and blues and pinks. And that's how we met at my very first international United Nations event. That continued forward when we reconnected again in Vienna in March of 2018. And then Jules and Myrtle were guests at the International Policy Conference that we were holding when we were expecting the WHO recommendations to be considered and voted on. It was an extremely disappointing event because they postponed it. We were not answered given the finality that we had hoped for. And then we've continued. From there, we were invited to come to South Africa to celebrate 4/20 and experience our own D-Day, which we did in 2019. And we did some help with you on the manifesto, the People's Plant, because we felt so strongly that the people deserve access to cannabis around the world. And the manifesto that had started as a draft that Myrtle had done was just amazing in and of itself. Us as a team had just released a book of cannabis and sustainable development goals. And the overlay of those two documents really complemented each other. And so they invited us to come and help them to improve what would become the now final manifesto. Of course, I can't take much credit for the content that went in because, again, Myrtle was already amazing and brilliant. But it's a fantastic document. We look forward to following how the country of South Africa will move forward with their cannabis regulation developments and social equity concerns, and to stop criminalizing and jailing people for this plant. And I say that truly from my heart because we suffer the same thing here in Mexico. We have one access to the plant by way of a Supreme Court ruling in our favor. And still since 2018, we do not have any viable solutions. We are still able to be criminalized, and this needs to stop. Bless you guys all in South Africa. Have a wonderful event today.
Michael Kravitz is a veteran of the US Armed Forces and a veteran of international drug policy reform. Thank you, Michael, for your insight, wisdom, and vast experience, and for always pointing out how far we have come when we complain how slowly international drug policy is changing. Coming to you from near Roanoke, Virginia, our dear friend Michael. Apologies for the quality of the video.
Hello, everyone from Virginia, USA. This is really a special ask to say something for the Daga couple and this big project of creating this sensational platform and starting point for the conversation around the the real legalization of cannabis, I would call it. This has been an amazing journey. I'm so glad for the time that I've been able to spend with y'all and gifted with the ability to actually go down to Johannesburg and see the jazz farm and get to spend some time with everyone. Was really a highlight of my activism and very special. Like Amy, I remember you all when you showed up in New York in 2016 at the big drug summit. But I've been trying to put this all in context in my brain. I mean, I came into this in 1998. I was an envoy of the cannabis movement, starting to look forward and create access inside the UN. I was just looking for badges. That's the only reason I was there. I found out that the Rastafari were there in like 1988, but just barely. I mean, they were there, they said a few words, they had a couple of things. I can't even find any media, from them being there. In 1998, there was basically nobody there. And that's one of the things that really got me started, was the fact that here at the UN, there's almost nobody there representing the cannabis movement. And when you all came in and I met you in 2016, it was really a breath of fresh air. And I never questioned it. I never questioned anything. I mean, we have a billion or so cannabis aficionados around the globe. And I don't really try to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't try to overthink it. I just, sort of take my instructions from the ether and move forward. And those who are sent to work with me are literally standing by my side. I never have to look very far for the team that I'm going to work with. And when Myrtle and Jules showed up, it was really obvious that we had a couple of new leaders that were in our midst that could help us take this next big, bold step that we're going to take to change the world drug policy. And I see the work that you're doing down there, this document, as a first step in that big effort, believe it or not, connecting the world together through the grassroots in the most literal sense of the meaning. So much love. I thank you so much for bringing me into this project and for the little bit of contribution that I've been able to make. Hope it was useful, and just so much love for you all, and see you soon, hopefully in person.
How many times in the last week have you heard the word stakeholders? Russ Warren wanted to make a meme with me in the dacha patch with a piece of steak on a fork. My dear Suresh, our Fields of Green for All stakeholder manager, what would I have done without you this past month? Suresh managed the complicated editing and proofreading process and contributed an eagle eye to the content, refining diagrams and ensuring readability. Thank you, brother. You have been a solid rock. Suresh is here to tell us about the importance of stakeholders in our manifesto.
Hi, everyone. So it's quite appropriate that I'm a stakeholder manager, considering I come from the meat industry. So, in a nutshell, a stakeholder is any individual or organization that has an interest in how the SA cannabis industry is going to be formed. Now, we obviously have our typical stakeholders that we always speak about, which are our 22 government departments, which we have sued half of which. And it became quite evident that there were many more types of stakeholders that we needed to identify for our manifesto now and going forward. So over the past couple years, I created the stakeholder section by identifying, categorizing, and expanding all the stakeholders that Fields of Green for All, as well as the dacha couple, have come across over the past decade. And they are categorized as follows. First and foremost are our affiliates, who we love very dearly because they have supported us for many, many years. And they're the first stakeholders on our list, followed by our local community groups and non-profit supporters, our international affiliates, affiliate companies and organizations, then our SA government departments, followed by trade unions and industry reps, then other NGOs, media, legal, and finally universities and higher education. So besides managing the manifesto editing process over the last couple of months, I also created Section 1, as well as other content throughout the document, which I have forgotten about. But one of the most important pieces I feel was the executive summary. And Mark Twain once said, "I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one instead." And this really resonates with me, particularly around this executive summary, because it took thousands of hours to firstly create it. It started off as 4 pages, whittled it down to 3, then 2, then only recently we got it down to 1. So I really implore you just to read the executive summary as a starting point. It literally takes a 100-page document and succinctly summarizes it in a quick read. And all I can say for now is I hope everyone enjoys reading the manifesto, and thank you to Myrtle, to Jules, and to the rest of my team for a very enjoyable past 12 months. Thank you.
I think everybody has heard us say so many times, you can't get what you want unless you know what you want. But one of the central things that we know is that we do not want to leave anybody behind when it comes to this cannabis industry, particularly those people who are involved in the existing underground, black market, unregulated, whatever you want to call it, industry. Once we have taken into account the context within which our cannabis laws must change, we bring the discussion down to the ground. From the day we sued the South African government in 2011, Julian and I vowed to do this for each and every South African who uses, cultivates, or trades in our beloved plant. One person who has been by our side stepped up to the plate to become part of our legal team along the way, and always volunteered his time and expertise to the most marginalized amongst us, traditional rural cannabis farmers. To all the cannabis farmers in South Africa and beyond, in every province in South Africa and neighboring countries, we promise that we will fight for you to not be left behind. Ricky Stone, thank you from all of us, and coming to you from Jeffreys Bay, Eastern Cape, here's Captain Green's words for all of us.
My name is Ricky Stone, and I'm an activist attorney. I'm also the authorized legal representative of 500,000 legacy cannabis farmers of the Amapondo Nation in the former Transkei. I speak today on behalf of these farmers, and I want one thing to be very clear, and that's that these farmers will not be left behind in an emerging cannabis industry in South Africa. No person or entity shall genuinely profit off of the back of a century of prohibition which has persecuted the indigenous holders of some of South Africa's finest cannabis law. These farmers know what they want, and they'll lead the revolution with a groundswell of support towards Fields of Green for All's manifesto, the only policy document which is guided by human rights and which places these legacy cannabis farmers at the forefront of any cannabis industry. You see, this Amapondo cannabis seed has thrived for well over 500 harvests. In doing so, it has endured 20 years of aerial eradication efforts by the South African police services, spraying glyphosate indiscriminately from helicopters in an effort to eradicate this very seed. Quite literally, this seed contains the DNA of our modern-day cannabis. It must be cherished and protected at all costs. Cherished so as to appreciate the richness and diversity of African cannabis, and protected from the deceptive tentacles of state and corporate capture, all already underway in various forms. So this is not a seed of hope, for in South Africa, it is the people that have started the great cannabis conversation, not the politicians or corporations. This is a seed of resiliency, a seed of timeless wisdom, a seed which will rewrite history. Ultimately, this is a seed of uprising. The Amapondo legacy cannabis farmers have raised their fists. The politicians are listening with receptive ears. We are actively engaging them and making incredible progress. So our legacy cannabis farmers have risen, and they'll continue to rise until they get what they want. That much I can promise you. Amandla, aware to, power to the people.
If ever there was someone who knows what prohibition is like on the ground, that has to be our Charles Henning. From Thursday busts, where we know the victims are going to be spending the weekend in a cage, to desperate citizens who have lost their jobs because of cannabis use, and parents fighting for the right to see their children. Charles has seen and heard it all. We're so grateful for Charles' calm and caring as he assists each and every victim of prohibition in their hour of need. This is on top of Charles' management of our social media and making us endless cups of coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, the force behind our Stop the Cops campaign, Charles Henning.
Hi everyone. So I must be the one at Fields of Green that maybe likes my work the least. And why would that be? Because I'm still here after 7 years. Why would I still be here then? When Jews first gave me this phone and said to me I have to take all the calls, people phone Fields of Green for all kinds of reasons. I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to do it, but I jumped in and I tried, and eventually I learned a lot. And a lot of people phone me at all kinds of hours, 4 o'clock in the morning. On a Sunday night at 11, I've got a piece of land, can you help me? I get all kinds of requests, all kinds of people from all directions. But the elephant in the room tonight is the police, and that's what I have to deal with on a daily basis. The arrests don't stop. It's 2021. Everybody's shouting in the media about our bright cannabis future, but it's not going to arrive unless we stop the police. And how do we stop them? There's this divide between the government and what the general public perceive cannabis to be, and us, the cannabis community. And there's knowledge that has to be filled in to bridge that gap. So education is key there. When people phone me when there's an arrest, they think I'm Batman. I'm going to come flying out and help them and chase the cops away, but unfortunately I can't. So what I do is I need to train the people to help themselves, because I'm only one person and I have to help whoever calls from wherever. So the satisfaction I get from my work is to help people to help themselves. Because when you get arrested, I can't really help you much over the phone. I can just tell you, here's some links, print these documents if you can. The people that don't have a smartphone or internet, they often have to endure a few days of really unpleasant things. The police can be very destructive and brutal. And on our books, we have a CRM system on the computer, on the internet. People fill in a form when they get arrested. We get all the info. We have hundreds of arrests. And anybody can come and sit next to me and read these reports. None of them are constitutional. The police never follow procedure. And one of the biggest problems is the head of police, Becky Chele, because he has personally arrested people and made sure that the media know about this. And along with the police, the media play along as well to do this big cover-up and put all the misinformation out there. Publish bust reports, which is all nonsense. But the satisfaction in my job I get from helping people, so that's why I'm still here after 7 years. And one thing I've learned is that cannabis is first and foremost a human rights issue, and that's why we want an equal share of that for everybody, and that's why we are Fields of Green for All. So to stop the police is our number one issue. I don't think anything is going to change or move forward unless we stop the arrests. Who would want to be in an industry where people get arrested for your product and what you live for? Thank you.
Our next speaker needs no introduction. an activist since before any of us, and a brother who has stood by our side every step of the way. I asked Gareth, what are we going to try next to stop the cops? Coming to us from his home in Cape Town, Russ Gareth Prince.
We find that nearly 30 months after the historical Constitutional Court judgment, police still have the power to arrest members of the cannabis community, and in the 30 months we've still had hundreds of cases of people that's been reported as being arrested and harassed by the police for offences that should not have been offences. The Cannabis Development Council of South Africa, as well as Fields of Green for All, have now partnered in collaboration with the Centre for Applied Legal Studies to bring a court application whereby we would ask for an interdict against the power of the police to arrest in relation to cannabis-related offences. The 2 years that's been afforded by the Court to Parliament has been gravely abused, and we find that very little progress has been made in this regard, and we see that the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill still proposes to arrest citizens for planting the cannabis tree. We thus are going to bring an application whereby we will be seeking a temporary interdict whilst the government get their act in order to come forth with legislation that will pass the constitutional test. The second part of the application would center around the power of the police to arrest in relation to an offense that doesn't even have a victim. We will be arguing that this exercise of power is an unfair exercise of the police power and should not exist in relation to cannabis. The police should not have the power to arrest people for cannabis. Bottom line.
The brother's always said it like it is. I don't know how many times he's been arrested. Plenty. So once we've established that we are going to leave nobody behind, we come to the meat of our manifesto. This is our full spectrum model. This is what we propose legal cannabis to look like in South Africa. Section 5 was a nightmare. It went on and on. We used to send each other messages late at night. Section 5. But we polished it and rewrote it until we were happy with it. Central to our full spectrum model for cannabis regulation in South Africa is the formation of hubs and clubs. Remember those words, hubs and clubs. Hubs are nothing new, as we have agricultural hubs all over our country, and cannabis hubs are discussed at length in the manifesto. Dacha private clubs are central to the rights granted to us by the Constitutional Court in September 2018. But first we must make something clear. It is not right and constitutes an abuse of our universal human rights that medical, pharmaceutical, as well as industrial hemp cannabis are given priority over adult use cannabis. To make this distinction clear, once and for all, is Emile Visser, longtime activist and creator of the first Dacha Couple website, back then in 2011. He's our favorite micromanager. As Jules always used to say, I am not sick and I don't want to make socks. Here I'm also calling out all of the other African countries, our neighbors, who are putting profit before human rights by allowing the production of medicine but still arresting their citizens in the street. You hear me, Lesotho. You hear me, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria. You are perpetuating the colonial legacy that Julian fought so hard against. You are failing your citizens. So before we go on to the much more fun subject of clubs, We need to stop here and just make this distinction and make ourselves very clear. I asked Emile the question, what is the difference between licensed cannabis and regulated cannabis?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me, and thank you for tonight. There's a lot of work to go into creating a manifesto, and getting tonight where we are tonight. This has been many, many years. All this effort and all this work, including the Cape Town High Court application that's gone through and the judgment that's gone through, has had very little effect in the sense that we still have unregulated cannabis. It is a highly unregulated space. The police are misusing and abusing that space at the moment. And it's going to take another 2 years, according to a draft master plan, where we might consider what a regulated space will be for adult use and personal cultivation consumption only. There's no provision for commercial cannabis at the moment, and there's no provision for any further, post-2023, for any further commercialization of hemp. So at the moment, what we're facing is an unregulated space up until that comes into play. And when it comes to play, like Grav said, we're actually facing a more severe possibility of getting arrested with 15-year jail terms, which doesn't exist at the moment. We've got a lot more grounds and rights right now than when that bill comes into play. And the difference with stepping from a licensed space into a regulated space, there are examples around the world where there are regulated cannabis industry and a self-regulated cannabis industry that does not have to go and seek permission on a licensing schema. The licensing schema traditionally is for big pharma corporations and for a high public safety and health regulations and reasons. But this plant is so benign, it doesn't demand that. This plant can be self-regulated. We don't need to put it in the medical, pharmaceutical regulations. And there's examples around the world where they've regulated cannabis for medical purposes outside of the pharmaceutical rules and regulations. South Africa, we are facing with straight-up pharmaceutical rules for regulating cannabis under Schedule 6. So if you want to export, you have to play the licensing game and play against pharmaceutical rules. But there's a big gap there. We have the licensing world in South Africa, there's a licensing angle, there is private use, and there's nothing in between, really. There's hemp R&D and not even hemp commercial. So where we want to move towards is a space that is regulated to bring more safe access to cannabis, which is underpinned by harm reduction. And at the moment, we're facing that the harms of police and the harms of criminalization is more than what the plant is bringing towards the party. So at the moment, the government has not come up with a better solution. There's more harms in the current cannabis draft bill proposed than what is on the table right now. Even though it's unregulated, we somehow have more rights than when that bill comes into play. Thank you very much.
As I have said, over the years, we have received unwavering support from our legal team at Schindler's Attorneys. Here to tell us about a very important aspect of our full spectrum model that is very close to our hearts, Dagga private clubs. It will really, really make my heart and the heart of many South Africans really happy if we can just be allowed to have a broad spectrum of types of Dagga private clubs. It will just be a huge sigh of relief. So here to give us a little bit more insight into this concept and our campaign is Andrew Lurie from Schindler's Attorneys.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew from Schindler's Attorneys. I'm just here to give you a brief rundown of how Dagga private clubs are intended to work. So before the cannabis judgment of 2018, we had cannabis as a drug in terms of the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, and we had cannabis as a scheduled substance. But now, post the 2018 judgment, we have an entirely new classification of cannabis. We now have cannabis as private property. Today, and sorry. Right now, as civil society, as a function of our right to privacy, we are able to grow and use cannabis personally. We're also allowed to share it amongst one another freely. But this begs the question, what happens to those who lack both the expertise and the space to grow cannabis? Well, we submit that your right to grow cannabis doesn't simply disappear because of your own personal limitations. Enter the Dagga Private Club. Legally speaking, the Dagga Private Club is a mechanism whereby one can contractually assign your right to grow cannabis to a Dagga Private Club. The Dagga Private Club, DPC, the DPC would then grow on your behalf and return the harvest to you. We submit that this model allows private persons to more fully and properly enjoy the rights that they would ordinarily have over their private property. Ultimately, however, the DPC model represents a way to get safer, higher quality, and exponentially more cannabis in the ground here and now. The DPC model is presently untested in court. However, it is presently before the Western Cape High Court at the instance of the Hayes Club. The case has been led by Andrew McPherson of Ward Brink Attorneys, assisted by Schindler's, and we have Surisha Pillay and Renee Graham from the Cape Bar, all helping on a pro bono basis. Hopefully we'll have judgment by July or June, but litigation against the state by its very nature is an uncertain practice. Until then, DPCs are advised to operate at their own risk. Fortunately, there are many ways to mitigate this risk. And for more on that, people who are operating DPCs at the moment are advised to open up the manifesto immediately and read what it has to say. There is a lot of risk that you can mitigate simply by keeping adequate records of what's going on there. So yeah, guys, thanks for your time. And yeah, honored to be here. Thank you, everyone.
So we've got this model of hubs and clubs, and where do we go from here? So our chapter 6 is about the way forward. We would not be here today if it wasn't for our main resource, the Fields of Green for All website. Have you had a look lately? It's an incredible thing, and Robin Cameron has been building it with us for the last 5-6 years. Our website is an ever-evolving work of art. I'm very proud and grateful to have Robin as a fellow director of Fields of Green for All, and your work championing women in the world of weed and the importance of the support industries within our cannabis space. Ladies and gentlemen, Robin.
A lot more nerve-wracking from up here. Thank you, Myrtle. Myrtle did say we were allowed to read our speeches, so forgive me for no eye contact. With the latest unemployment rate in South Africa sitting at over 30%, and the fact that there is only so much space for growers and other touching the plant businesses in any form of legal framework, we need to encourage the ancillary businesses, especially in the startup and the SME sectors. Businesses such as agricultural input suppliers, accounting services, HR and payroll, tech support and software. The list goes on. We need to encourage entrepreneurs to support the cannabis industry with various services and products. Encourage existing communities and hubs that operate cohesively, where everyone can earn a decent and fair living doing what they are good at and what they enjoy. Businesses in the support space need to see cannabis industry clients as viable opportunities and recognize the need for these cannabis businesses to educate and break the stigma to their clients in order to be successful in a rapidly emerging space already being saturated. We need support businesses to help create the public space in which we interact and engage with cannabis companies. The tech industry is an obvious ally, the marketing another, and they both play well together. The reality is that perceptions matter, user experience matters, even if they are just stoners. Look and feel matter. Would the content of this manifesto hold the true weight of its importance if it hadn't been so elegantly and professionally designed by our amazing team, Lois and Keith from Merch on Demand? Don't forget, content is king. Our main authors, Myrtle and Suresh, you guys might need to give up your day jobs and start a content writing creation support business now that we can physically hold and see the magnitude of the weight of your words. In just under 5 years of stats for our Fields of Green for All website, over 140,000 visitors have found us organically because of our content. Over 100,000 have come from our communities on Facebook and Instagram alone, not to mention all the video views from the Hotbox show, media articles and press coverage, and our entire community's ongoing support and sharing of our cause. Our cannabis FAQ page that Charles manages has showed up in Google searches over 400,000 times. Our local affiliates page, over 70,000 times. Legal consumers and potential customers are out there looking for help. Reach out to your network and normal suppliers with your cannabis problems and let these support industries move into the space of providing 420-friendly solutions. And on that note, thank you and happy 420.
Joanne Parry, my JoJo, is the longest surviving member of the Fields of Green for All team. Together we started the Join the Queue program that saw us driving countless of our hours to support people who are arrested on cannabis charges in small towns across South Africa. This resulted in over 100 cases being granted stays of prosecution pending the outcome of the trial of the plant. Those cases are still waiting with us. But central to Joe's activism has always been cannabis culture. Here to tell us about the Hotbox show, Fields of Green for All's weekly cannabis YouTube show, my dear Joanne.
Well, good evening. Hi. So, cannabis culture describes a social atmosphere or series of associated social behaviors that revolve around cannabis consumption, particularly as an entheogen, medicine, and as a tool for relaxing. We don't call it recreational, we do call it responsible adult use. The influence of cannabis has also encompassed holidays like today's 420, cinema, music, and magazines. Cannabis culture has even infiltrated the chess world, with the bong cloud attack denoting a highly risky opening sequence. Facts I learned today. Cannabis has now evolved its own language, humor, etiquette, art, literature, and music. In his book, This is Cannabis, published by Sanctuary Publishing, Nick Brownlee writes, perhaps because of its ancient mystical and spiritual roots, because of the psychotherapeutic effects of the drug, and because it's illegal, even the very act of smoking a joint has very deep symbolism. Now, the Hotbox show crew would like to think that our efforts in some way help preserve our South African cannabis culture. From the stories we share, the guests we interview, we've been capturing local culture and sharing it with the world every Thursday night since August 2017. I'm going to cry now. Okay, warning you. It's been really hard the last 10 months since they took the life of our Jules. When they came and took him, they took a piece from all of us on the crew as well. So we've taken a bit of a break. We had to, because he was our driving force. He was our energy and he was our captain of our little ship. We've taken this break to gather ourselves towards ourselves. We're going to focus on ways to re-energize the show and to connect with our community better. Letting the show go was never an option. This show was Jules's playground. He'd smile at me and say, "Joe, it's my retirement plan," with that cheeky little smile that we all loved so much. We are going to be taking the roadshow, the Hotbox, back on the road again. We've done a few broadcasts from some venues before, and it's always amazing to have the energy of the audience surround us. We love connecting with our community, and we are going to be making a lot more effort to do so from now on. Our first road trip will be in August as we head down to the coast for the Garden Route Canna Cup, which Myrtle has been invited to be a judge for. So the whole crew's going to go down and support her as well. We are going to be putting together a street crew that will be going out to get to film opinions from the general public on issues revolving around cannabis. And we will be spending more time with our affiliates and getting around to as many cannabis-related venues and businesses as we logistically can get to. Now, I don't have a long time to talk, and I've already gone over my time. But I do need to say this. I'd love to take the opportunity to tip my hat to my amazing crew. I count myself incredibly blessed to be part of this crew. Myrtle, our fearless leader. The levels of love and respect that we all have for you, they haven't invented words in the English language to fully cover. Okay, it's just... Our technical crew, Boomschlang and Captain Stream, we genuinely wouldn't have as great a show as we do without you two. The backbone of our show. What these guys do behind the scenes is mind-blowing. My fellow hosts, Dan, who brings such a beautiful energy onto the show. He's so calming, and you can believe everything he says. You know he's right. Charles always comes in with such passion. He tells us about all these traumatic arrests, and he fills us with such fire. It keeps us going, it keeps pushing us. And then Dale. Dale is the newest member of our show. He started off as audience, coffee, and he used to cook the boerewors rolls before the show because we eat first. He's now going to be in charge of our street team, and he's going to be making sure that we do a whole lot more outside broadcasts. So I love you guys so much, and I look forward to creating a beautiful future with all of you. Thank you.
Like Jules and I always called ourselves, we were the ordinary criminals. There are millions of cannabis users, traders, and cultivators across SA who just want to get on with their lives. Dale Viljoen, or just Dale, from the Hotbox show, is here to tell us why he became a cannabis activist all of a sudden.
Good day, everyone. So I have always been pro-choice, the belief that people should have the right to choose anything that they want to consume or put in their bodies, as long as it does no harm to anyone else around them. But it was when I was unlawfully arrested, beaten, and thrown into a dirty jail cell that I truly could no longer ignore the authorities' blatant disregard for human life. Being arrested can be the most traumatic thing that can happen to a person in this country, and it is happening to harmless, innocent people everywhere. Some of the most precious people you'll ever encounter, some of them have lost their lives while many others will spend their lives in jail. All in the name of cannabis, a plant that can actually be used for the benefit of everybody in our community. Yet our people are being robbed and murdered by the very same people who swore an oath to protect us. So you don't have to look far to witness the potential of the plant. People all around you are healing themselves and others. They're healing themselves from life-threatening ailments. not just your cancer, but there's mental abuse and many other things to consider. And we cannot deny anybody the same treatment. So being an activist is far more than chanting, "Free the weed." We are far past that. It is our responsibility to share the truth, the good and the bad. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
It's so lovely sharing the stage with the whole crew. It's very special. If ever there was an activist's activist, the title has to belong to Warren John Smith. Famous among us for his unwavering passion and outspoken anger at the system, which has repressed his Rastafari family, profiling and locking up his community in cages every day in South Africa. Rastafari elders have been murdered in custody. 2 elders in the last 18 months alone. But still the SAPS act with impunity. Coming to us from Kids Beach, East London, Russ Yellowman.
This is Russ Warren Yellowman from Koidang Crafts down here in the Eastern Cape. Make no mistake, we're celebrating a great day today. Fields of Green for All are launching the full Spectrum Cannabis Manifesto, the People's Plant. It's such an awesome document and it's such an awesome journey that has taken us here to this day, that we can celebrate all the good things and all the great things that cannabis has brought, especially this document that kind of puts our position out there, to tell the government what we want as cannabis activists, what we want down on the ground, what the people need and what the people want in South Africa in terms of cannabis. Cannabis activism is very important to me as an individual, but also as a collective. Cannabis activism is a representation of the fight that each and every one of us have for the freedom of this plant, for the liberty of this plant, so that we can unleash cannabis onto South Africa, where we can uplift the poor people, where we can uplift each and every one of us here today. Cannabis activism is very important to me because it's the last apartheid law. It's the last one that we should make fall, the last one that we must burn. And it's a stand today that will unite us as South Africans, unite us from different classes and races and different cultures and backgrounds. And that is cannabis. Cannabis has brought us together, brought us from all journeys and walks of life, has made us meet and greet great people and made us do great things in our lives. And we must be thankful for cannabis activists around South Africa that have done every little thing that they could do and every little part that you and me and whoever could have done to get this plant free and stand and fight and smoke cannabis in your private space. So today is a day to celebrate. Today is a day that we can show the government that we know what we want and we're fighting for what we know, and we are the experts. There's no other experts, and that we're calling on the cops to stop arresting adults for cannabis, to respect our human right, and not to treat us as criminals, because we are not criminals and we are proudly green. So today I dedicate this pipe to Brother Jules up in the cosmos. I levicate everything to all those that have lost their lives for this plant. All those fallen soldiers, let us never forget them. Let us always remember them. I give thanks to all my brothers and sisters, all my Rastafari brothers and sisters that have stood the ground and that have led this race and have made no mistake that they are not here to back down and to negotiate with Babylon, and that Rastafari is standing strong to fire burn the wicked man and this system. And we give thanks for this cup of ganja, this incense, this sacrament that we can use in our private space. And that is because we have fought for it. We as cannabis activists has fought for this. And that is why cannabis activism is very important. It is important to me as an individual because it liberates myself, my being, who I am. And each and every one of you must raise your voices, must stand up against the discrimination, must stand up against the injustices, because this is the last apartheid law to fall, and we will burn it day by day. And like Jules says, if you want to uplift this economy, you got to unleash this plant. Not hemp, not medicine, cannabis, dacha, all of it. Fire burn, and let us all rally and support this full spectrum cannabis manifesto and support the hard work that Fields of Green for All and everyone out there has put in to get us this far, and let us go to the moon and back. Fire burn, give thanks and light your cup as we celebrate this day. Jah bless man, give thanks, more fire.
I would like to thank the following
Warren
people.
Yellowman from Quaid Crafts.
He hasn't said enough. I would like to thank the following people who have been vital to our work on this manifesto, as well as to end dacha prohibition in South Africa. Our amazing operations manager who can't be with us this evening. Captain Stream, Nelio de Freitas. Nelio, thank you for all the work you put into this presentation and live stream tonight, and for the thousands of hours you dedicate in the background with your tech expertise. Rian Boomschlang van der Merwe, over there in the background, keeping things together. We understand each other and the job to be done, Rian and I, because of his years of experience in the film industry. Thank you for your unwavering support. Sven, where's he? There he is. My fellow director of Fields of Green for All and our accountant. Somehow, we keep the numbers on track. Somehow. Thanks for always being by my side, Sven. Amy, my angel. And the member of our team who fills in the admin gaps and always keeps us fed. We love the pic of you and Robin smoking a bong in the manifesto. Isn't that great? 2 chicks smoking a bong. Love you, Amy Haystack. Thank you to our South African affiliates, some who are here tonight, and the members of the Green Network. Your monthly donations make sure we can pay the bills. And through your work and activism all over South Africa, we can be assured that our message stays out there loud and clear. To our affiliate organizations, fellow NGOs and international affiliates, thank you for your unwavering support. To every person who has ever donated their time and money, thank you. Thank you to the expert witnesses for the trial of the plant, and our entire legal team at Schindler's Attorneys, our advocates Don Mahon and Chris Carlson. It is our sincere hope that we will never have to go back to court. However, if our government doesn't take into account the contents of this manifesto, it's back to Pretoria we go. The trial of the plant too is still a very real possibility. Thank you to Adam and Belinda Howard and the staff at Howard Audio for hosting us this event, and Adam, for the thousands and thousands of studio hours you've donated to us over the years. Jules used to come to Adam with a little bit embarrassed and say, "Can you do something with this cuck audio, please?" Thanks so much. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you hold in your hands a book which has been impeccably designed and professionally laid out for our e-book and the printed version. This is thanks to the thousands and thousands of hours and work put in by our mother and son team, Lois and Keith McKay. Our manifesto is beautiful. More importantly, it's readable and accessible. Thank you, Keith and Lois. In conclusion, I have a message for our government. In particular, Justice Minister Ronald Lamola, Police Minister Becky Tlele, and Police Commissioner Ketla Sitole. Minister Lamola, we reject your cannabis for private purposes bill entirely. Every single word of it. How can you assign writing this bill to an advocate who was on the opposing side of the courtroom in the Western Cape High Court case in 2017? You got a prohibitionist to write the bill. That's what you did, Minister Lamola. This bill is not based on evidence, and it will never pass constitutional muster. Throw it in the bin and start again by reading our manifesto. When Julian and I started our activism journey in 2010 by suing 8 government departments, one of the first things we learned, and advice that our team gives to people to this day, is to get rid of the fear. Minister Chele and Commissioner Sithole, we are not scared of you. And we will fight your ignorance, your lack of cognizance of the law, your bullying and your disregard of our human rights every single day until the South African police force is taken out of the cannabis space entirely. Leave us alone and go and do your job. Cannabis can help South Africa economically, but remember, good people disobey bad laws. Julian was shot in our bed at 2 a.m. in the morning of Friday, the 3rd of July, 2020. The worst has already happened to me. And that day, the worst also happened to 50 plus other South Africans whose loved ones were murdered on that day. There are over 50 murders in South Africa. I stand with every person in SA who has seen their loved ones die at the hands of criminals who run rampant and murder with impunity in our country. I have not heard from the police since October 2020. It is impossible to contact the investigating officer, as your system is broken, Minister Chele. It is broken and rotten to the core. And I hate the South African police. Don't tell me there are good people in the police. Where are they? There has been no investigation into Julian's murder, and I doubt that there have been investigations into the other 50 plus murders that happened that day. Minister Chele and Commissioner Sithole, you have failed South Africa and her people. Maybe if your loved one's murder could garner some political spin, you will receive a personal visit from the minister in black, flown to the scene using our taxpayers' money so the minister can pose for the cameras and look like he is doing his job. Maybe if you are important enough, you will get the Hawks or the Special Investigation Unit looking into the crime. But if you are just an ordinary person, there will be no justice for the hundreds of murders, rapes, and armed robberies that happen in South Africa every day. I have to endure reports of the Hawks ropping up at people's houses and private spaces to arrest them for dacha. And there's no investigation into Julian's murder. The police on the ground ignore the directives coming concerning dacha sent out by you, Commissioner Sithole. My question to you, Minister Chele, and Commissioner Sithole is this. What if it was your wife who was shot dead in your bed next to you? What would you do if you were me? My sweetie, I miss you. We miss you more than words can ever say. But we promised you, and we promised South Africa, that we will never stop until we get fields of green for all. Viva Amadacha Dacha, viva. Thank you. Love you all.